Alrighty boys, so here is another live stream reaction here boys. It's been put up as a YouTube video, so we're going to be covering some Poppy Playtime lore as promised up on the channel. Of course, we're going to be playing it as well, uploading that into the channel as well here pretty soon, doing a full Poppy Playtime series. We're going to have to see how that goes. But pretty much we got chapter 4's ending explained here by Sheep Rampage. Sheep Rampage, you've been watching his videos for a while for you know, some of the content and stuff like that. Obviously, you'll probably watch some other lore videos as well, since this is pretty much just explaining the ending and not specifically the whole game. And then, of course, we'll watch an updated version of the full story and whatnot once all those videos start dropping here in the next few days. And then, you know, including our own games, our own gameplay and whatnot. So, without further ado, if you guys enjoyed today's video, don't forget to drop a like and sub. There's our YouTube comment shout out. Let's go ahead and get straight into the content, boys, here. No transition needed here. And let's go ahead and get started.
Chapter 4 is finally here, and while there have been a ton of mysteries, lore drops, and more to talk about over the next couple weeks, the first thing I want to focus on is the extremely mysterious ending of the chapter, where today I'll explain the entire thing from its plot twists, reveals, and even hints for what we can expect from Chapter 5 already.
Oh so man, Chapter 5 is going to be so good. They're going to cook, bro. They are going to cook.
Caves while Poppy goes to retrieve Kissy, and later coming upon the prison, where after meeting up with our new ally Doey the Doughman, we are introduced to the safe haven that he was the protector of, with many remaining toys after the Hour of Joy, including some that could heal Kissy's wounds, who also survived, by the way, and was down here with us. And afterward, we are tasked with acquiring
so that's pretty much how Kissy
misses from Dr. Sawyer by going through his evil pet Yarnaby and defeating him once and for all, so we could access their private generator they needed to repair before it lost power.
I missed some of it. I was watching on my buddy's play it, and then I fell asleep for like a half hour, and I missed a lot.
Goal with entering the factory was to go as deep into it as possible and burn
and then I was
from the bottom
busy
up.
cleaning
However,
and stuff like that, so I didn't see like a good chunk of it as well.
To the safe haven to find that while we were gone, the prototype had mysteriously broken in and stolen our explosives, destroying everything in the haven and killing every toy Doey worked so hard to protect, causing him to snap and turn against us, which
he crashed out.
I have a ton of theories for why all this happened, so make sure to subscribe to not miss that, because it is deep. But after Doey goes completely crazy, changing his entire form and giving us a super long chase sequence and even a boss fight, we eventually defeat the Doughman once and for all, crushing him, allowing for us to search for the remaining survivors of the wreckage, where we conveniently find Poppy and Kissy safe inside of a ventilation system. However, not long after this, Poppy tries to reach out to Ollie, who is in the game, by the way. He only appears a couple times, but when doing this, Ollie confidently announces our exact position.
Shelf ventilation block B6.
And reveals that this entire time he was actually in fact the prototype, mimicking the voice of the child Ollie for years.
Who is this?
Yikes, bro.
With an obvious answer.
Tricking Poppy and all of us into trusting him. Afterwards, the prototype asked Poppy to join him, causing her to completely panic and run away, leaving just us and Kissy, where the prototype then intercepts the rest of our explosives from earlier and blows up the building, leaving just the remains of Kissy's
shout out to Kissy Missy, bro. She crying.
Into the next and
her arm literally ripped off,
gonna save us. Playtime, the labs, where our first sight upon walking in is a beautiful garden of poppies laying all across, leading us to a small room, also including poppy flowers, which gives us a final VHS tape from Leith Pierre, a security brief of the area parodying the original one back in Chapter 1, but this time much more sinister, telling us that we were going to be shot on sight upon entering the labs.
When someone finds you down here, you will be shot.
While he boasts about his wonderful security, right at the perfect time for a big blue furball to make his way back into the game, who attacks us through the glass, which is where the entire chapter finally ends. So now, to break all this down, I want to break it up into two mini sections: the Poppy betrayal scene and the actual ending when we walk into the labs. And first, starting with Poppy's quote-unquote betrayal, as we mentioned, Poppy gets extremely surprised upon finding out Ollie this entire time was actually just the prototype.
That was like
and when she asked if there ever was an Ollie, he said,
"Yes, there was.
But that was a very long time ago."
Which is interesting because when playing through Chapter 4, we actually got ourselves a tape showing a conversation between Poppy and Ollie, where Ollie calls Poppy as she's in tears and panic from these scientists digging inside of her and pulling out her body parts to try and see what made her, saying,
"It's been weeks and weeks of taking things it's taking things out and putting them back in.
As Ollie comforts her.
I'm here, Poppy. For you, I'll always be there.
That's so
Now,
messed
was
up,
this the
bro.
real Ollie or the prototype? I
We have
honestly
no
don't
clue.
know, but either way, this
We
makes
just
this
need to find out
betrayal
the
so much
timeline
more
of that
important,
tape.
knowing that one of her only friends, Ollie,
That's
was
so messed
gone,
up.
and now
Yeah,
the
and it
prototype
was a
knew
prototype.
everything about her whereabouts. But why did he want to know this? Well, later on in the encounter, the prototype tells us what he plans to do.
I'm going to come up there, and I'm going to find you.
Your collaborators, the few you have left, they will be dealt with.
Implying, of course, he was going to kill us, the player, and Kissy. And when she
Yeah.
asked what he was going to do with her if he found us, he said,
I've got something special in mind.
I prepared it.
That's
just
so
like
messed
you.
up. Imagine your friend saying this to you, bro. Or thinking this is
which
your
seems
friend the
to
whole
be
time.
a callback all the way to
This was me, struggling to keep up with posting
Yeah,
consistently
I could
on
not
YouTube,
could not
getting
process
less
that,
consistent.
man. Especially in this
So,
situation. It's messed up. Absolutely messed up.
Poppy's case that she was kept in when we found her at the start, that she was so desperate to leave when we freed her in chapter 1, suggesting the prototype was the one who originally put her inside that case, and this time after he got her, he was going to keep her locked up in a place she wouldn't want to leave. Now, of course, leaving the question, why did the prototype want to lock Poppy up so badly? Well, he goes on, saying,
I admit I'm disappointed.
After all that time in your case, I'd hoped you'd see things
Differently, don't you understand?
Right.
always been about you.
And we're what we are.
concluding by saying,
It's time to come home.
Poppy.
causing her to panic, yelling,
I can't go back in the case. I can't. I'm sorry.
before running away, leaving us and
And
Kissy
she's like,
alone
I'm
to
getting the
deal
hell
with
out of
the
here. I ain't
explosion.
going back
So
in
clearly,
there.
the prototype in some way had a major disagreement with Poppy, causing him to have to lock her up in solitude, which was such a scary thought to her that she chose to betray us at the mere mention of going back. But then, what does all of this mean?
Not really
as for
betraying,
Poppy
she
and the
just got
prototype's
scared and ran,
relationship,
man.
back during the Doughy the Doe-Man fight, we could actually see on the Nightmare Critters during the chase scene here, there was a red VHS tape we could grab, which when finishing the boss fight, we could play, revealing a new audio where we actually heard Poppy talking to herself about the prototype, following what I think is the Hour of Joy, where she said,
It was awful. So awful. I thought we were gonna leave the factory. Not this. Prototype says we can't leave. Not now, not ever. I hate him. And I hate this place. And I hate
So
that
she got promised that they were gonna leave, and then they did the Hour of Joy
everything.
instead.
And he's right. We can't leave. It's too risky. What they did to us, we can't ever let it happen to us or anyone ever again.
which from what I've gathered explains to us that at some
I
point
mean,
there
if
was
they go
an
in the real
interaction
world, they're just gonna
between
get tapped
Poppy
by, like,
and
the military or
prototype,
something,
where
so-
Poppy, again after what I think was the Hour of Joy, wanted
Makes
to
sense.
escape and leave the factory, while the prototype wanted everybody to stay. For one, obviously because he wanted to control all of the toys, but also something they likely didn't consider is that now that they were toys, they couldn't just leave the factory and have the public
Yeah.
find out about the experiments. It was too risky, as Poppy says. Nor could they
Oh,
live
it's
a
all would've
normal
died.
life like that anyway, which presumably gave her the idea when we see her throughout the game to want to try and blow the place up using explosives and ensure
Yeah.
this doesn't happen to anybody ever again. But despite this, when threatened with going into her case, she seemingly betrays us by running away. And while I'm sure people will
I'm
be
sure
quick
she'll
to
come
call
back
this
and
out
help
as
us
Poppy
later.
being an evil villain all along and not really caring about us, I actually think it's a bit more complicated than that. Because when we go into the safe haven, there is a lot of talk about Poppy finally returning after apparently leaving the factory. They have murals on the wall writing about how she left and how they miss her, and the toys are all talking about her and why she returned when we explore the area.
What's Poppy doing here? I mean, how do we even know we can trust her this time?
And while as of right now, why she left
Right.
Safe Haven, leading presumably to her being locked up by 1006, is a theory for another day, what matters is that this shows a pattern that Poppy is generally a coward and was foreshadowing to
Right.
us that
So
in
she's
tough
like- she's
situations,
scared
she
and
tends
timid to help
simply
people out?
run away. We even saw this
Type
in
deal?
chapter 3
That's what
when
I'm
right
assuming?
after the
She's
train
kinda dragging
crash,
everybody
she's
down
just
with her.
gone. Which, while this could be interpreted as Poppy being selfish and showing she's a backstabber, I also think this could just be Poppy being traumatized and scared, not knowing what to do in
Yeah, they were
high-pressure
kids that were
situations
locked up
and
into the
panicking,
dolls, so
since
people forget
after
that?
all, she is still a young child.
Exactly my
and I
point.
do mean a now confirmed child. Because later in her VHS tape, she reminisces on missing her father that she confirms is Elliot Ludwig.
I wish you were here, Dad. I could really use one of your talks right about now. When you were running this place, you always knew what to say.
So that all makes a lot of sense. The prototype locked Poppy up to keep her from running away or burning down the factory.
That's
and upon her escaping her case with the player, the reason she kept telling us in earlier chapters that we were capable and that she needed us is because she saw we could make her way around the factory and was hoping we could help her with her mission. However, now that we're doing it, he is after her once again to keep her away and to keep her from now wanting to burn the entire place down, killing 1006, which when confronted scared her so much, causing her to run away out of panic. But now, following this scene, let's talk about the lab's ending. This is where things get really interesting. As when we first drop, we see this mysterious garden upon our entrance containing a bunch of poppy flowers, which is obviously symbolic of the game and its title, Poppy Playtime. But the purpose of this garden is both simple and confusing, because while in more recent chapters the developers have seemingly kind of shied away from discussing the topic, something that was a big mystery in chapters 1 and 2 was the poppy flower and the powers it held. Since the very first experiment created by Elliot Ludwig was, of course, Poppy Playtime, who was
had to have been something with like the poppy flowers specifically brought it back,
talk, think for herself, and generally act like a human turned doll. Something that the scientists of Playtime Co. could never biologically reproduce, despite vigorously studying her out of her will, like she talked about with Ollie in her VHS tape. But this led to a lot of speculation around what powers the poppy flower had in the Poppy Playtime universe. We even saw in this chapter 2 document the scientists were testing rats and poppy gel just to see what would happen, again alluding to there being supernatural elements relating to the
Yeah, I wonder why poppy flowers specifically have such a spiritual power in this universe to bring things alive like that.
And while they haven't really gone into depth about what or how they are used, clearly we could see the scientists are growing a whole underground garden purely of the poppy flower right next to the labs where the experiments were presumably created, so they could have them at easy grasp while experimenting, which obviously suggests to us that in some way the poppy was in fact super important to the creation of the toys somehow. Maybe it was like an actual supernatural ability.
There's like
where
an ingredient, an active ingredient in it.
Gave
I don't
creatures life, or that it could have a more spiritual explanation where the employees maybe saw the poppy flower as a god, judged from symbols like this one from the Project Playtime ARG.
Yeah, that's just a bit creepy though.
This mythical, uncreatable being they could study for the future, and so maybe they use poppy flowers as an almost superstition or memorial to the very
into like cult
original.
type
I don't
stuff,
know,
man.
but this is
That's what it
clearly a
seems like to
topic
me.
that will be focused on more in the final chapter 5. And yes, I did say final. They don't confirm it, but earlier in the game, Poppy did tell us a few things about this lab location, being that the labs was where the prototype was actually keeping the orphan children sleeping that we will obviously want to save first, before we will then burn the entire place down with everyone else in it. But not before we have to make it past 2 final creatures. The prototype, who earlier in the game we actually saw a full design of in a shadow, which definitely looks menacing, and of course the return of Huggy Wuggy, who looks noticeably injured but still hungrier than ever. And while to the naked eye there doesn't look like there's too much to say about Huggy here, he just survived the fall and is back, not really a big deal. However, if you actually look super close at this model, you can see that his injuries have been bandaged up and repaired, meaning that somebody in the factory had actually healed Huggy, more than likely being someone like the prototype, which I found pretty interesting. But then we drift off into sleep from a red gas trap where presumably we will wake up in the lab starting the next game. But other than that, that is chapter 4's entire ending explained. Make sure to subscribe to not miss my future.
Yeah, so that's pretty much gonna do it for the reaction, boys. Post thoughts here. So yeah, I mean, chapter 5 is definitely gonna be something pretty interesting. I mean, chapter 4 in general was just really like fun to watch, like gameplay wise, and to see the lore and whatnot. And of course, we'll be watching more lore videos leading up into you know, an eventual timeline video and whatnot, and us playing the game ourselves. But yeah, chapter 4 was pretty good, and honestly, if I were to rate it, I'd say it was pretty good, like an 8.5 probably out of 10, probably, compared to the other ones. I mean, obviously the original was just a solid 10 for me, just because the original experience of it. I think number 2 was like a 9. I say this one was 8.5 only because it was a little confusing at times, but the lore for the most part is kind of connecting the dots together. And this one's just tying up some loose ends. I think that one's going to be the final, you know, like they're going to, you know, solve everything for us. Like he said, it was likely going to be the final chapter, next chapter. So we're going to have to see what that entails. But anyways, boys, that's pretty much going to do it for the video portion of this. If you guys enjoyed, don't forget to drop a like and sub, and I'll see you guys in the next one.